just a quick little jaunt over to the cornerbacks room and talk about um, another interesting room. This is another one where you lose a couple guys. This, like I said, the losing stars and waves. So not only did you lose Bo Freeler and Malik Verdon at the back end, but on the perimeter uh, you lose Miles Purchase, who had played a million snaps for Iowa State. Yeah, he got his first um, got some of his first real playing time in 2021 in the Cheez It Bowl against Clemson, and that which was actually Bo Freeler started a good chunk of the earlier part of that. So he started, earlier in the season when he started taking snaps away from Isheem Young, if you remember that name. Um, he took a lot of that, but then, like you said, Bo Freeler and um, Miles Purchase both got their first real big snaps against Clemson in that bowl game. But he's played a ton, been a rock solid for his whole career. And then the other one you lose is Darian Porter. And Darian Porter is going to be he'll be at least a day 2 pick. I think his performance at the combine, where as a 6'4 corner that just ran a 4.3 or a 4.28 or whatever it was at the NFL combine, I think you're going to see him fly up draft boards. I think he's solidly a day 2 pick right now. There could be a team at the back end of the first round that just takes a flyer on him because he's such an incredible athlete, and he's new to the position, but he's obviously very good at it. And what's worth noting too is that he didn't play corner in high school really. So like he picked up the position kind of from scratch in college. So he's very raw. He's very new to the position, relatively speaking. However, the reason I think that Darian Porter, aside from him being a departure, I think Darian Porter is a really interesting person to bring up here is because if you look right below where I have Jeremiah Cooper, you will see Ben Ngoye. Now, I know a number of times on this show, I had suggested that I thought somebody would get moved there. I had speculated that it could have been Abu Sama because they were looking at him at corner coming out of high school, and then just were essentially forced to put him at running back because he was so good in the spring and summer. Um, but the other guy that we had heard, even in bowl practice times, was that Ben Ngoye could get moved from a receiver over to corner. I think they tried him at receiver because he 6'4", 200 pounds, 6'4", with an exceptional athlete. I think is something you always want to try at receiver just to see if you can try to find your at that size. Frankly, you're looking for your own Randy Moss, basically. You tried him out. Had difficulty, um, had difficulty finding any consistency there. His hands were fine, but not awesome. Um, but they decided that instead of, he also decided that instead of just trying to figure it out and trying to push his way up through a receiver room that, has some guys there that I think would have pushed him down the depth chart, you move him to corner. Now, unlike Darian Porter, Benny Nagoye did play corner in high school and he was good. Most of his tape from high school, if you look at his reps at corner, were probably almost better than they were at receiver. I'm very, very intrigued by this. I think he'll pick it up. He'll pick it up faster than Darian Porter did, which Darian Porter picked it up fairly fast, but I think he will pick it up pretty quickly. It kind of came out last year in the press conferences earlier this spring that he was actually even practicing at corner for bowl practices. So he's been at corner since December in practicing. He was taking reps in practice at corner, prior to the bowl game. So I think that's a really interesting name. Is he going to be ready to play a lot this fall? I genuinely have no idea. But what I do know is that there is extremely recent precedent for Iowa State taking a tall receiver that's a really great athlete, like a really good athlete. Like I would put Benny Nagoye as a raw athlete. I would put him in the same category as Darian Porter. And they have recent precedent of taking a guy like that, moving him to corner and turning him into an NFL caliber player. Benny Nagoye has a head start over Darian Porter in that he's a little bit younger and he played corner in high school. So just a few years ago, I'm extremely intrigued by Benny Nagoye here. I don't know if he'll be ready for the fall. I wouldn't be shocked at all if we do start seeing him popping up on the field a little bit. Once you get to October and November, maybe some guys get banged up a little bit, or he's starting to really figure it out. You'll probably see him on special teams. I'd be pretty surprised if you don't see him on special teams, but um, especially like on the outside, on the edges, on kickoffs. Love having a guy like that. But gosh, Ben Ngoy is a really at that with that size and his athleticism, that is really, really interesting there. Um, your number one starter at corner this year, I think, is no doubt Jontez Williams. He ended up taking the starting spot last year, across from Miles Purchase, and was awesome. I think he had finished with 6 interceptions. I want to say he had like 5 in 5 games. I think he had a interception in 5 games in a row or something like that, or 5 in 6. He was really good. I mean, I would say it's had a good corner for a long time. Going back to, Brian Peavy was a great, great corner for a long, long time. And then TJ Tampa shows up and he's a lockdown corner and was an NFL draft pick. And then you have Miles Purchase also, but then also now and then Darian Porter. And now you've got Jontez Williams, who appears to be the heir apparent to being the really good corner at Iowa State. And I maybe not even appears to be. I think he just is. Like, I think he's just the next really, really good corner at Iowa State. He's full on lockdown. Got teams tried to throw on him last season, went extremely poorly. Yeah, I think about as right now you feel about as good about him as a starter at that position as you do at about almost anybody else starting at their position on the roster, except for maybe Rocco. You love Jontez Williams at that spot. There's a lot of names on here, a lot of young guys in this group, at corner. Oh, I forgot to mention, as in the safeties group, Cam Smith was another guy that played a bunch last year. I think he'll be easily be in that 2 deep rotation for safety as well. I don't know if Benny Nagoya is going to be ready to go, but Quentin Taylor is a guy there. I know that they really like him. Marcus Neal could be in there. There's a few different guys here that could move around a corner. And they do kind of rotate guys around a little bit. As far as corner and safety, they can move guys around just a little bit. I mean, they were never going to put Bo Freeler at corner last year, but there's guys that can be flexible on where they're at and what positions they're learning. I think it's probably a little early right now to figure out exactly what's going on, but Jontez Williams is absolutely the number one guy there. Beyond him, it's a little tough to tell what their mindset is as far as this position group goes. Because yeah, I mean, you lost 3 of 4 starters. If for what it's worth, the bowl game depth chart has what's going to be he'd be true sophomore David Coffey, or sorry, redshirt freshman David Coffey. He was listed on the 2 deep for the bowl game, for what it's worth. So he could be a guy that's absolutely in the mix for this as well. So, I think this is a position group that probably has maybe the most questions. Mostly not due to lack of talent or lack of depth necessarily, but just inexperience right now and just figuring out who's going to be out there across from Jontez Williams. Fortunately, the way Iowa State's scheme works, your second corner doesn't necessarily have to be a lockdown guy. If you can have a guy like Jontez Williams that you can put on their best receiver and erase him from the game, your safeties can help a lot with that other corner, a lot. So, they're going to find a good guy. Said David Coffey, I think, might be there. I would love to see Benny Nagoye. I think that would be a really fun story to see Iowa State turn another, athletic, tall receiver into a big time corner prospect. I think I would love to have that kind of pipeline at Iowa State. There was the middle linebacker to quarterback thing for a while. But then, for one guy, but we all liked the idea of having a Joel Lanning type pipeline where just like, oh, this quarterback that's not making it, let's throw him at middle linebacker. I think we'd all like to have something like that because it'd be funny, but that's a definite, like, there's precedent there. They've turned a really good player, turned out a really good player by converting a receiver to corner there. So I love the idea of Benny Nagoye being there.